It's Valentine's Day, and as you can see, I got somebody special with me today. This is my lovely wife, Margarita. She's real, she's here. She's not a manifestation story that I made up for the algorithm. The original story I told in the early days of this very channel racked up over 250,000 views here on YouTube before I decided to take it down. Since then, quite a few of you have been in my comments over the last year or so, and some of you have even sent emails asking me about that very video. What happened to it? Does the law really work? Where's the proof? Well, we are the proof. That video gave you the blueprint, but this one gives you the receipts. And this time, you're not just hearing about my side of things, but my wife's as well. What she saw when I was at my best, what she saw when I fell off, what happened in separation, and what actually brought us back together and keeps us together even after everything's said and done. So no scripts today in this lesson. We're opening up our lives to you today, but keep this in the back of your mind. Identity is the only thing that changed me and then our relationship as a result. I first made the promise to myself to change my world from within, and then everything you hear today is about how the world without responded to that. Not a list of affirmations, not a technique, and definitely not some sort of love spell. My life started to move when I changed who I was to match up with who I wanted to be, and everything around me responded. So, without further ado. Now, when I was doing all of these techniques and more, when I was doing the scripting, and I told you about this, when I was doing the scripting, all the affirmations, the subliminals, things of that nature, what was going on in your life when we were separated? Did you feel any of that, or were you just having your best life? Future Shaun here, popping in to remind you to enroll into my INNERVERSE program. 5 transformative courses to guide you and aid you in your next identity shift. Click the link down below in the description or in the pinned comment. Back to our regularly scheduled program. All right, so to begin our origin story, we're going to talk about when we first met. The year was 2019 or more. What do you remember about that year?
I was finishing college. I was not that young. I come back to college being an adult. I was 28. And I was, a friend of us put us in this blind date.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got to the restaurant, I found this super handsome man, nothing to do with what I saw in the pictures. So I was really pleased. And we have a wonderful dinner. And he asked me, when is your birthday? And I say, I'm a Scorpio. What do you remember?
Yeah. So I remember, as she said, we had been given pictures of each other that we didn't really like. I didn't really think that the pictures were great from her, and the picture that was sent from me was horrible. So I thought that maybe we would just meet, have a good time together, maybe become friends or something like that. But I walked into the restaurant. I got there a little bit early, and I waited for her there. And when she walked in, I just like, whoa, okay, hold on. Wait, let's reset. Who is this? And immediately, as I said, we're from different cultures. We're from different parts of the world. We grew up in different decades. But as soon as I met her, as soon as we started talking, the conversation just started to flow immediately. So we moved outside, and even back then, I was very into the zodiac, and I asked her about her zodiac sign. She told me Scorpio, and immediately my flashes went off. I just started thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting. So it was the day we met. It felt like we knew each other our whole lives, even though we were very different. Okay, so what do you remember about me when we met back in 2019? What do you remember about those early weeks and months when we first met?
It was insane kind of feeling of attraction, but mostly because I think in our second date, I walk with you and I hold your arm, and he was so strong back then. He was humongous, and there was something in me who told me, if you have to cross the world, if it's like a big like end of the world kind of movie,
Mm-hmm.
if I go with him, I will cross and I'll be safe.
Yeah.
It was kind of like we come to work something called territory,
Mm.
and walk together through the path is just easier, and
Very.
I feel safe. So that was that kind of like, he come to my house and he was like, I have to come back to my house. I have the doggy. I had to walk my dog. Ozzy was with us. And I was like, don't leave me, please. And I am not an attachment person.
Yeah. Very autonomous. She was
Yes.
doing her own thing when she wanted, how she wanted to do it.
And like a week after we started seeing each other, I called him and I was like, "So, where are we? Where are we? Tell me." And he was like, take it slow. So it was kind of like something that I didn't feel with anyone else. Was like, I don't know what it is, but I want to have you on my side.
Mm.
Mhm.
So, from my point of view back then, I was just getting out of a relationship and I didn't really care about being in one. Like I said, as soon as we met, extremely attracted. But when we talk about detachment and identity, and we'll come back to this later, I was okay with it. I was okay without it. And seemingly that made me magnetic. I didn't know any of this back then. 2019 was my pre awakening years where I was just going about everything the way I'd always gone about it. So when we met, I was so almost thrown off by how magnetic I seemed to be towards her and how she was towards me. And that scared me. So we can get right into the self destruction after that. So, but I like to give my wife a lot of credit because back then, like I said, I was in a sort of like a purgatory period with myself and my growth and my career. I made great money. I had a comfortable home, nice car, things of that nature, but I wasn't happy. So when we were dating, she kept telling me 1111 or more, make a wish, make a wish. And I'm like, what is this 1111 stuff? Like, what is she talking about? I had no idea about numerology, anything of that nature. Later on, when we actually started to kind of descend into the breakup, and again, most of that was 99.9% my fault because I didn't have the identity yet to even embrace some sort of love like that, right? So eventually we ended up parting ways, but it was that 1111 that she kept telling me over and over again. And I went looking for those answers. And that's how I discovered the law of attraction, the law of assumption, all these great works of Neville Goddard, Florence Scovel Shinn, Joseph Murphy, all these great writers. And that's when I started to discover myself. All right, so I'm going to jump forward in time a little bit. So after we had to part ways around 2020, I think most people relationships didn't survive when the pandemic hit. I moved away for a number of years, and then I really, really worked on myself and discovered myself, and had some lows and some highs, and eventually I ended up returning back to Atlanta to be with my now wife. But back then we were still boyfriend and girlfriend. And now comes the story of what happened. So we're not going to get too much into the breakup because everything is all about identity and learning to receive things. So at this time, many of you heard, even from my last video, that this is around 2023 now. And everything imploded. We were actually planning to move out of the country. My wife is Colombian. She's from, I don't want to mispronounce the name of your city. I would mispronounce it.
I am from a city called Pereira, but I grew
Pereira.
up in Madrid. And back then, Sean already had the engagement ring and he was going to propose.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We already had the engagement ring. We had been together for a year or so. I imploded and I didn't really, I was good for boyfriend. I was good for my boyfriend 1 year, 2 years, and then I would start having these limiting beliefs and things of that nature. So we actually spent some time in Colombia, about 2 months, right? Well, a little bit over 2 months. We actually parted ways there. And it was very devastating to me. It was very devastating to me. And so, and to you as well.
too.
To you as well. But we're going to get into that story. But that is when I decided I was in a town called Laureles, a part of the city in Medellin, Colombia called Laureles. And I remember I was standing out. I had like this loft that I had from Airbnb. And I made a promise to myself that I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how to win back the woman I love after I seemingly self-destructed. And if this works, I'll start a YouTube channel. So that was the creation of Here Nor There. Almost a year later, I started this channel, and here we are almost 3 years later from that exact moment. So now we're at 2023. We're at the hospital. My father is recovering from kidney cancer surgery. Everything's fine now, but back then we didn't really know that. We had lost our home together because we had parted ways. I had lost my job at the time. A lot of my identity just collapsed, and the relationship was a reflection of that. And that's when all of these things that I've been studying from 2019 all the way to 2023, I was always doing some spiritual dabbling. I was never taking the law quite serious. I would take it serious when I lost something, and then I would not take it serious when I had everything in my hands. So again, I decided to make this promise to myself to get this done the right way this time and to stay there. So what I would like to know from you and what the people would like to hear from you is, did you see a difference in me from when I was at my best, when we first reunited back in 2022, going into 2023? And then did you see when I started to drift away from being my best version of myself, did you start to feel that difference? Did you see a difference?
I think everything is about frequency. And something that Pisces has is that he looks perfect. He goes through perfection. He's the most gentleman. He take care of everything, but it's like a card, um,
Like House of Cards?
a house of
Yeah, House of
cards.
Cards. Yeah.
Like you just like blue and it fall apart because there is a lot of insecurities behind.
I'm gonna edit that out.
Do like this and it just fall apart. So he talks a lot about how his accountability,
Yes.
how he makes responsible for his own behaviors, but deep down my subconsciousness was not in the right place also. I remember that back in October I make a big prayer, and my prayer was so solid. I want a house, I want my husband, I want babies, I want the doggy, and everything, the house of cards had to fall apart for
Yes.
that to actually happen.
Yes. Yes.
You know, like me not feeling worth it or not taking my place as a wife, not being responsible for my own uh, emotions or my own happiness. I always asked for a husband who had a purpose, who take responsibility for his own happiness. And when Shaun started this project, he become all of that I always pray for, you know. So that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And when we come back together after 7 or 8 months separated, I found a man who didn't hide his emotions, who didn't hide his rage or his frustration or his stress. It was a man with way more coherence in his life. He was grounded. He was true to himself. So when I asked him something, he was able to maybe not reply. But when you don't reply, you also reply. Because I'm sorry to say this, but the first day that I come back to him, I ask him, "Are you dating someone?" And he just keeps silent. And that was already truth. That was already truth for me. So I was like, oh, am I seeing someone who don't try to hide everything under perfection? Someone way more real. So a lot of integrity. And something that you can feel that is real, that I can build from a steady ground.
Amen. I talk about that a lot, integrity. I don't know if I'm the only person in this space on YouTube that talks about it, but it's something that I had to live. It's something that I teach in my INNERVERSE program. Every YouTube video you see here, it's integrity. And my beautiful wife just said the same thing. Going back to that phase, because that's something that you brought up that was really good. That was a very dark period for me, but it was one of the best periods of my life because I actually learned how to be the future version of myself that I always talk about. And one thing that I learned in that is that I did every technique. I knew all the Never Got It techniques, the visualizations, the affirmations, the scripting, new moon, full moon, all these things. And it just seemed like things would budge a little bit. Maybe she would reach out. Maybe she would, tell me something sweet. Maybe she would want to see each other. But it just never progressed because I wasn't changing. I was doing things to change the outside circumstances, but I wasn't changing the things within me. So when all those things stopped working, that's when I finally realized that, hey, it's me. I'm the only one jumping around these different realities. I'm the only one making the decisions. I have to actually be this, because she made a very important point and she could feel it. And whether you're a lady watching this, whether you're a man watching this, we all have this built-in intuition where we can feel if somebody's being authentic or not. And whether we consciously know it or not, it will repel us. And that's what happened. I was doing techniques. I was doing all these different hacks. She would come forward a little bit and then she would part ways because I had to change from the inside first. And that started with integrity, being a man that doesn't lie, that doesn't tell half truths, that doesn't gaslight people and things like that. And I always say that people aren't necessarily doing it out of hate or maliciousness. It's typically fear of being hurt, fear of giving too much and not receiving anything back, fear of losing the power dynamic. So that is when we started to come back together, when I finally started to get it together within. And by this time, she was dating somebody else, dating other people. I was dating other people. So let's stop there. That's a question that I always get, especially from the ladies. I always get this question, can I date somebody else? So I give my answer first. It doesn't matter. What matters is who you are being, no matter who you're with. You can hide yourself away in your home. You can not date, be celibate, just brush off anybody that wants to give you love. And it won't matter, because it's all about integrity. It's about who you are being with the love that you already have. That matters the most. So if you do decide to date, it's about who you're being. Are you still being husband material when you're out here dating? Which means you have to be a person of integrity, which means you have to treat others how you want to be treated. And the same if you're a lady. It's about becoming the husband, becoming the wife before the husband and wife arrives. And that's what makes them arrive. So one question I always get is, how was Amor thinking when I was trying to manifest her? I want you to start there first. When I was doing all the techniques, I remember one time we went on a date and I hadn't seen her in a couple months, and she saw that I had some scripting and some candles laying around. None of that stuff was working. But how did you feel when I was, I guess, still trying to find my identity? And then how did you feel when you came back into the picture after I actually made the transformation?
So I feel women, I'm not gonna generalize, but I think women, we grieve the relationship inside the relationship. So I feel like 3 months prior, I was grieving so much. It was so hard. And when Shaun named Lorella, is like, I wanted to cry because it was so hard for us to split apart. And then he started telling me, I feel I'm falling into depression. And I was so cruel back then. And I told you, backlab is just the beginning of it. I felt like it was a new beginning for me, and things just start going well. I get a new place. I got a job. I started getting an income. I started doing my life. I started like saving money, paying my things. So what I asked, should I wait? And the answer was no. Like in 6 months, you will find the love of your life. That was the answer that I got. So I was like, oh, okay. I just
And this is from a reader, right? Like a energy reader or tarot reader? Or...
yeah, from my therapist. I put
okay.
some tarot on it. And then I started doing my life by, first of all, I learned how to control my sexuality. So I did quarantines where I didn't I don't know.
Then intimacy
with myself or with other people. So it controls, because sexuality is creativity and is the source of your discipline, of your power or willpower. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So first I did that. And then a lot of people kind of like, I think I'm maybe a wifey material, because everyone was like, what are we? From just like going to dinner. And I was like, no, I don't want to date anyone.
So the more you poured into yourself, the more magnetic you became to other people.
Absolutely. And people were like, we were waiting for you. We were waiting for you to get separated from Shaun. I was waiting for you for a year. I was waiting for you. I saw you from far away, but you had a partner. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Haters.
I'm sorry. And the moment that I met someone, I think I did someone for a month. And that was the moment that Shaun actually wrote a letter, and he exercised detachment from me. That's what I needed.
Yes.
Who was like, I want Margarita to be okay with whoever she is, and whatever she's doing, I hope she's doing okay.
Yes.
And in that moment, whatever it was, desperation energy, or it was my happiness depend on her, or whatever it is, that chain broke. And that day, I crawl in bed. Yeah. Like fetal position, and I just softly cry, and I was like,
Yeah.
I want my husband back.
Yeah.
I want him back. And then
Yeah.
I text him, and I was like, knock knock, I'm back. What you doing? And he looked at me bad. He was like, what you doing here? And I broke his shell. He was
Yeah.
just pretending.
Just pretend. It's all I ask. So the letter she's talking about, it was a letter I actually wrote to myself. So those of you who want to, jump and take action, I did not write a letter and send it to her. I wrote a letter to myself. And it was a letter of forgiveness. It started with forgiveness of myself for just a lot of the darkness that I had to make me kind of succumb to a negative identity, a negative self-concept, the limiting beliefs, forgiving myself of these things. And I talk about writing a lot because there's a lot that happens with your mind when you're in the act of writing that doesn't happen when you're typing or just speaking, right? So I wrote a letter of forgiveness to myself first, and then I wrote a letter of forgiveness to her. A lot of anger was built up in me because I was angry about her reaction to my negative self-concepts, my negative identity. So I let that go. And I wished her nothing but happiness because me not being happy was draining me. I was walking around here in the neighborhood I live in downtown Atlanta, just bright sunny days, and I'm miserable. All the money in the bank that I needed, great car, family surrounding me, and I was miserable because I was soaked in guilt from how everything ended. So I forgave her for her reaction to my behavior. And I said, hey, I want to be happy again. Wherever she is, by this time, we hadn't spoken in 2-3 months almost. Wherever she is, whoever she's with, I want her to be happy. Now, that's black belt level detachment. This was after 8 months of pain, 8 months of trying hacks and it not working. But in that time, I learned how to be a husband. And I always say this to my INNERVERSE clients, to people who work with me one-on-one, and even people in my personal life, is that our breakup, the goodbye that we had, she told me goodbye in July of that year and said, hey, I'll never speak to you again, never speak to me, never come looking for me. But that goodbye was the beginning of our relationship, the beginning of our new relationship, because I had learned everything in that 8-9 months of separation that keeps us together now. And that got us married in the first place. So when I recorded that video back with the Get Your Ex Back video back in the top of 2023, we were engaged at that time. And now here we are 2 years later and we're married. This is our beautiful home that you see me talking in all the time every week. And so it's an honor for us to bring our story to you. And we know that it's going to be probably, dozens of couples, hundreds of couples, thousands of individuals that we're going to help that we're never going to actually meet, never actually share words with or share a coffee with. And as long as we can help somebody else, as long as we can make somebody else's journey easier, then we're really, doing the world some justice and giving value back for everything that we learn. Okay, now we do have a lot of questions. We have some questions from the Q&A. I opened up a poll not too long ago where a lot of my members and subscribers were able to ask questions for me and my lovely wife. But before we get into that, we wanted to make one thing evident, crystal clear, that manifestation is automatic. Because of your identity, because of your subconscious mind, because of how this universe, this 3D reality works, you are automatically attracting things to you. You come out your mother's womb with factory settings on doing this. It is the limiting beliefs that we gain during this process of infancy, toddler, adolescence, that we develop limiting beliefs. But as I said, manifestation is automatic. You're always receiving. It is about maintaining the love that you receive, whether it's money, whether it's love, whether it's health. When we draw these things in, that is just the beginning. The law of attraction isn't just about attracting, it's about keeping it as well. So part of this talk, I wanted to put a little bit more emphasis on what we do to maintain our identities in our relationship. So I'll start first. One thing that I do to maintain my identity, I don't do a laundry list of techniques. She's right here. Do I do techniques all the time? Do you see me open the corner doing? Okay, I'm not doing techniques all day, every day. What I do is I maintain my identity by being the person that got me here. One of those things is I hang around people on the same frequency, which means I hang around people with similar beliefs who are in similar stages of their life just as me. I don't really hang around a lot of single people. I don't really hang around a lot of single men. I hang around men who are already in relationships or men who are already married, including my father, who's been married to my mother for 55 years. But I make sure to surround myself around people who are like me. And even though I do have friends that are single, acquaintances, business partners, things of that nature, I always try to speak from a place of a man that's in a relationship, which means I don't complain about my wife outside of other people. I don't complain about our circumstances. I don't our business is our business. It's not for everybody else. That maintains the secrecy. I always talk about the secrecy between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, but also that helps you to cultivate the skill set to keep your mouth shut when you're in your relationship. Because often it's that over communication outside of relationships that ruin the integrity of the relationship.
Can I speak about what you just said?
Of course, go ahead.
Like when we were together back in 2021, I remember during our breakup, what it hurt me the most was that sharing that he shares with his family, that we were going through a rough time. And then it was really funny because I hated it as a Scorpio. I'm super mysterious, like I keep my things really tight. But then he make a channel talking about ourselves. And then he put a video call, "Can you X back like I did?" That was insane for me.
Yeah,
But
it's a lot.
but then to see now how in our marriage he's so hermetic. Like we go through moments of growth and he keep it absolutely private. And that is something that I admire a lot. Yeah.
Appreciate it. I feel a little okay. But yes, privacy. Privacy of not sharing, not oversharing too much outside your relationship. Just like you don't tell people about your manifestations, you don't tell people about your relationship, your actual love manifestation, your romance manifestations. You keep that within, and that keeps the integrity of your relationship. And also I use all of these techniques, all of these principles. This is for application on a daily level pretty much. When it comes down to learning how to regulate your emotions, how to regulate your nervous system, this is just fancy talk for how to deal with stress, how to deal with conflict, how to deal with disagreements. We always go back to our identity that first we trust each other. A lot of times when relationships disintegrate, somebody doesn't trust the other person or somebody doesn't trust themselves and they are projecting that onto the other person. So we don't really do a lot of projection. You know, we're human beings. Sometimes something will slip past the defenses for, a few minutes, a few days, a few hours sometimes, but we always come back and we communicate very well. And we always have a sense of integrity and accountability to get us through. And that comes from a very strong identity.
I feel like, for example, if there's something that bothers you, you have to take it to self realization. What is this bothering me? For example, Shaun works a lot. So I have to go to myself and be like, what do I feel? What am I grateful for? What have I learned from this? And I'm grateful because it gives us a beautiful life. What do I feel? I feel like Shaun used to work a lot. And what did I learn? I learned that if you want a purpose, you have to put the work.
Yes. Yes.
So if it's something that is bothering you about your partner, sometimes it's a reflection of what you have to work for. Like if he puts his job as a priority, how many other things are you doing before putting what you want to do as a priority? What is that reflecting onto your life?
Yes.
Like he's putting his job as something that is his priority. Am I not doing the same? Like, am I letting everything around it just distract me from what I really want to do? So self reflection is something that really is going to help you instead of like going complaining to other people.
So one question I always get is what is going on in the mind of the person you love when you're trying to manifest them? So I was doing all the techniques back in the day. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know it was about identity just yet. And there was a phase in my manifestation journey where I thought that me doing certain techniques is going to manipulate the outcomes. So For those out there, I've said this to people that I've worked with one-on-one. I've said this in groups. I've said this in videos. Now, when I was doing all of these techniques and more, when I was doing the scripting, and I told you about this, when I was doing the scripting, all the affirmations, the subliminals, things of that nature, what was going on in your life when we were separated? Did you feel any of that, or were you just having your best life?
You know when you put two magnets together and it has the same pole that just rejected? The more obsession and the more that you try to bring something into your life, the more rejection the other person feels. So Shaun came to my job once with
Yeah, I was
friends,
invited. Yeah.
and I felt so much rejection towards it. I was like, why is he here? Why is he in my space? Who invited him? No one told me he was coming. So no, it does not work. Stop doing it, please. I'm sorry.
So, okay. No, it's honesty. It's honesty. Because you have to hear it from the person's mouth. A lot of my clients have moved on to successful relationships, and I don't think they going to bring their partners back to say, "Hey, when I was doing the technique, what did you feel?" And me as a guide, as a teacher, I have to relieve people of that frustration, of that burden, because it's really about how you feel. Because at the end of the day, we're always manifesting feelings. To have the relationship without the love, without the passion, without the dedication and loyalty, it's not worth having the relationship. But when you have those things, then that enhances the relationship. So now when I reached this state, took me about 8 months. I was being stubborn and not, following through on what I knew was the truth, which was changing within myself. When I actually made those changes more, and when you actually started to feel a little bit differently, this was around the July, August timeframe where I wrote the letter of forgiveness, where I really felt I wanted to be happy again. I wanted her to be happy. When we met again in September, once I started focusing on myself, how did you feel then?
I also got with a lot of boundaries.
Mm.
I also put my limits. I say, this is the trips that I want to do. This is what I have planned for my life. We both set a lot of boundaries back then. It was like, this is me. This is what I want to be. And this is what I take and what I don't take. And I think he also, it's a sense of self-respect and self-love, that that who respect itself and love itself is able to respect and love others, and they know others deserve the same.
Mm.
So it's kind of like I can build a life with someone that walks this path.
Mm. So basically, before, when I'm focusing on the outside circumstances and your behavior, you felt rejection. When I started to focus on myself and actually be the man that I said I wanted to be, you felt the boundaries, you felt the respect, the self-respect, and that radiated back out to you.
Yeah, you want to be with someone who respects itself.
Mm.
Like you don't want to be with someone who abandons itself for others.
Mm.
That was one of the
Yeah.
questions, was like what I always get with men who are not healed. And I was thinking in the shower, do you abandon yourself for that people? Are you a
Mm.
savior? Do you feel like you ask many times to others what do they want to eat, but you haven't drink a glass of water today? Sometimes you have to think, in what ways do I abandon myself? Because when I got with Shaun used to abandon himself to make me happy.
Every weekend. Every weekend. I'm like, oh, what do you want to do? I'll drop everything. When you look at the map of consciousness, when you're behaving like that, is fear. I always made myself super, super available when I was in these dark periods, and it just pushed her away. It repelled her. Anything below courage, it repels people. Anything above that, when you get into feelings of love and peace and joy, happiness, fulfillment, people are attracted to you. That's why they call it law of attraction. Your energy is expansive. You're giving people energy rather than taking from them when you're in lower states, guilt, shame, and fear. So when I started to vibrate, when every cell in my body started to vibrate with what I said, what I'm thinking, and what I'm actually doing with my actions, that's when the law of attraction kicked in and we were back together again.
I also feel that I abandoned myself in certain ways.
Mm.
Shaun teach me discipline, like workout, discipline with conscious nutrition. He teach me how to nurture myself in so many ways. So it was also like
Yeah. We were
Give and
mirroring
take.
each other. Mirroring each other. All right, so we're going to get into the questions. Thank each and every one of you for submitting your questions. I really appreciate it. And my wife and I had a wonderful time reading them. So let's get into it so we can help you receive the love that you deserve. Question number 1 from Val. How can I best transform my limiting beliefs and behaviors to consciously manifest an ideal romantic partner for a lasting relationship? So I think I'll answer that first. Of course, identity first. Whatever is in your subconscious mind when it comes to your belief system about partners, about yourself, that is what's going to manifest. Your subconscious mind is what's interacting with reality, and you're using your conscious mind to program that subconscious mind. So, whenever we're talking about releasing limiting beliefs, first you have to identify what the limiting belief is. Typically, it's just one line of code, one sentence, something that you picked up about love, something that you picked up about relationships, something that you picked up about your identity and your role in that. It may be from a parent. It may be if you saw your parents get divorced at an early age. That's where it could come from. Love equals betrayal. Love equals abandonment, things of that nature. So to transform the limiting beliefs, first you have to figure out what the limiting belief is, right? And then to transform into the ideal romantic partner for a lasting relationship, you become the ideal romantic partner for a lasting relationship. It's all about what you are projecting. When you change your thought, your words, your actions to be that ideal romantic partner, you will naturally attract somebody that matches your frequency.
In my case, I wrote about my mom loving relationships. And when I finished, I was like, she's always the victim of love. That means I always end up being victim of the same love. And what you have to actually tell your subconscious is not only I'm not gonna be victim of love, but I'm not gonna victimize anyone. I'm not gonna make anything that can hurt other people. So that's a way. As a Shaun say, in a really practical way, go back and see how your family has been dealing with whatever is causing you trouble. It can be wealth, health, relationships.
So this next question is from Vanya. As a woman, what are some ways that you embody love in order to draw in healthy reciprocal love? Does it have to be huge gestures towards yourself?
So, as a practical exercise, I used to look at myself in the mirror for 5 minutes and see how my subconscious was speaking to me. If I see all the negative, or if I'm able to tell myself all the accomplishments that I did during the day. So, you self talk also says a lot of how you allow others to speak to you.
Amen.
So, if I tell myself, you didn't do enough today, or you didn't put your skincare last night. What I promise myself is like, I'm not going to speak like this to me tomorrow. I am going to put my skincare tomorrow. I'm going to little things that you notice when you speak to yourself, looking in the mirror, looking in
Yes.
your eyes, that it reflects how others are going to treat you, because it's how you're treating yourself at the end of the day.
Yes. So not just also how you're preparing yourself, how you're taking care of your vessel, your physical body, but and your appearance and things of that nature, but also how you're treating other people, right?
Yeah, how you treat yourself is also always a reflection. What I noticed during the years is when people is violent towards their word or disrespectful, they're always looking for that interaction because it's how they speak to themselves. So you're gonna stop having a lot of that when you notice how you speak to yourself.
Also, is there anything in terms of manifestation that you would do differently compared to someone who's identifying as a man, such as myself? Is your process different from mine? You see how my process is. As a woman, do you think yours is a little bit more nuanced?
I base more into the feeling. For example, oh my God, I would love to have those vacations and be there for 2 months and a half and then just let it go. And then it happens.
Yeah. Like magic. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there is also something called samskara, I believe, and you can put the seed of your visualization on your womb. So, for example, you dream love, you dream career, you dream home, and every day for 21 days, you can bring the seed and be grateful for it, grateful because you already have it. And I feel that the emptiness, the void, the creation is on your womb. And that is something that a man maybe
Yes.
wouldn't think about.
So my wife specializes more in somatic healing. She's really tapped into the divine feminine of it all, understanding the nurturing aspect of it. I'm more of a mental, logical person that combines the science with the spirituality. And that's one thing I think that we have a slight difference. We always come to the same conclusion, but she has more of a feminine approach to it, more of a masculine approach. Now, when you're applying that to manifestation, as you said, a lot of it is just detachment. But detachment comes from belief in yourself, and belief in yourself comes from trust in yourself, right? Because essentially just confidence is just when you trust yourself, you trust your skills, things of that nature. So I think that is something that we differ from slightly. Same result, same beginning, same result, but different approach in the middle. And that's how I think we would separate a masculine versus a feminine approach. Question number 3, Micaiah. I find manifesting love and relationships to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. But most of them were still healing from past hurt. How do I manifest men who are already healed? Take that one. Yeah. You're not healed. I'm just kidding. No, seriously. Remember, reality is a projection of who you are. So if we start to attract people who aren't healed, we have something in us that needs to be healed, because we are the only people that are attracting these people into these different relationships that you have. So typically, it's not that that person is mirroring your exact life experience. It's that that person is mirroring some type of limiting belief that you have, and they are there to either help identify it or to be a part of the outcome whenever you overcome it. So the problem comes in is when we are identifying and labeling other people as healed when there's something within us that's not quite healed. And that's why we're attracting them into our experience. So the answer here is that you become the healed person. You become the person with strong boundaries so people aren't overstepping them. You become the person that's easy to be in a relationship with, and you will draw that in naturally. So it's more so about changing the self, changing whatever it is that is attracting these unhealed people in, so you can do so as well. So you can be that type of person that ascends to the next level of relationships. Now, you mentioned the past here. So maybe there's something in the past that you haven't quite forgiven yet. The theme that we talk about throughout this whole video, throughout our relationship, and throughout even behind closed doors is forgiveness. None of this works without forgiveness.
Wow. I also talked about this before, and it was like when you think others haven't healed, but you have, you are constantly giving others what you want to receive. So just think about what you need first in your life, what you need to give to yourself, and why you are just radiating light walking through the street. You will find a man or a woman within the same vibration.
Yes, yes. And we say that with love. Once you're in the relationship / marriage that you've been manifesting, do you continue to visualize and affirm for a healthy relationship?
I feel that you start moving the goalpost. What do you want? Then I want to build a company together. I want investments. I want babies. I want a summer house on the beach. Like you still praying and giving gratitude for that healthy, loving relationship, but you can start thinking about grandkids. I don't
Right,
know,
right.
like
Yeah, that's exactly how I would do it as well. My visualization was very simple, and I advise any and everybody that's listening to this video now, keep it simple. The most simplest visualization that I had was that green couch back when our lovely Ozzy was still alive. My visualization was her going to bed early and the dog going to bed with her, and her telling me to finish up my work so I can come to bed. And that was my visualization. And that played out for the last 2 years of my life until Ozzy passed. And we still do that now. She goes to bed. She's like, I'm still grinding away on these videos, working with members, working with clients. And she still is telling me that. So that plays out all the time. So I don't have to visualize it all the time. You see where I'm going with that? So do you have to do it? No. Should you move the goalposts, as my wife said? Yes, because now you're in the relationship. So what's next? Property, vacations, European vacations, generational wealth, children. You just change the visualization, because that's how you maintain it. And then you continue to grab the skill set to get to that part of the relationship, to that specific phase. So no, you don't keep visualizing the same thing over and over again. You move the goalpost to a new goal. However, your identity has to stay the same. Back earlier in this video, we talked about maintenance. So you are continuing to be that person, and you do so through gratitude, through forgiveness. It's a constant thing you have to do. I'm grateful. Something went wrong. I forgive you. I'm grateful. Something went wrong. I forgive you. But not at that not at that exact cadence. But that's how you continue to keep your reality in just locked in, anchored in. It's through gratitude and it's through consistency. Question number 5 comes from Kitty. Now that I've spent 6 years healing my trauma and becoming my ideal lover, I don't really need anyone. I'm curious how you two connected. Was it also after solitude on each side or not? So, as we described earlier in the episode, that we initially met in 2019 and we came back together again in 2021. There was another disconnect, and then now we came back together in 2023, and now we're married. So, what happened in the very beginning? In those 2 periods, when we first met and we came back together, were we in solitude? Yeah, phases of it we were. I believe early in the story, my wife said that there was a part where she practiced a certain type of spiritual and intimate abstinences. Abstinency? Whatever. She wasn't. So there was a period of solitude. So yes, in and of its way, 2 things happened. There was a brief period of solitude for both of us. You can only climb the mountain of consciousness alone. It's a solo trip. Moses went up the mountain by himself. What's the one about Krishna? Did Krishna do something by himself too? I don't remember.
No.
Anyway, you look at any great religious figure, any great spiritual figure, I think the Buddha, everything, you ascend consciousness alone, right? And so when you're in solitude, that's when you start to contemplate. That's when you start to think. So there was an element of solitude that was there. But more importantly, there was a decision that we both had to make about previous partners that we were with until we met each other. So I believe in both of our instances, before we met, we were just exiting relationships. So it wasn't rebound situations. It was, I went through something, I learned who I am, I learned who I want to be, and then we went into a period of solitude, back together. Is that how you remember?
I feel like when you really love someone and you're destined to grow with, it doesn't matter what happened in the past, whoever you dated, you will pick that person to share your life. There is a moment that you don't have to think anymore who he used to date, who I used to date, because I wouldn't pick that person anymore. And I
Exactly.
wouldn't pick any future possible partner. I would choose my husband over everyone. So that's one of the things that you have to let go. Let go of the jealousy, let go of what happened if that person was with other people. Because even though I deal with I date people, at the end of the day, my realization was like, I want my husband. I want to be with him. And that separation that we had and those hard moments that sometimes you have, they always take you to the real person that you want to be with.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great. Question number 6 comes from Joyce. When you're in separation for months on end, how do you cope with missing each other?
Meditation.
Oh,
Meditation, you guys have to know that every time that you're in suffering, that every time your mind is spiraling, maybe I'm speaking for something different that Shaun usually speaks, but like being able to quiet your mind, they say the greatest warrior or the strongest warrior is the one who is able to control its emotions and their thoughts, being able to sit down and have hundreds of hours of meditation and just practice gratitude.
yes.
Gratitude for the air, for the sun, for the birds, for my ceiling today. It's just that.
Yes.
Missing someone else is part of control. I want to control the outcome of what the other people is doing. And at that point, you have to realize that you have no control. So just focus on the positive, and that's how.
Yeah, and my answer segues right into that. One, you can do inner conversations. In your imagination at all times, you have access to the memories of somebody. You have access to future visualizations of them. So if you are missing somebody that much, go within your mind. Typically within those memories, typically within these inner conversations, you'll also be able to discover a lot about yourself and why you're in separation in the first place. So that's what you can do first in your imagination. And second, in your physical world, you are already surrounded by love. There are other people in your reality that would love your attention. So no matter if it's big or small, pour into the other people that already surround you. Coworkers, friends, family, even if you decide to date. The universe doesn't see the difference between love from this person or love from this specific person. It sees the exchange of love no different than it sees the exchange of money. So you get the love ball rolling by giving it to other people. So imagination, if you really longing for that person, you want to see that person again. Back on that green couch when we were separated, I used to have inner conversations with her on days where I felt like I missed her a little bit too much than usual. But when it came down to what actually worked, I started pouring into my daughter. I started pouring into my mother. I started taking my best friend out to eat. I started giving more attention. The attention that I wanted to share with her, I started sharing with others. And that's what magnetized it back into my life. Question number 7 comes from Padma. If creation is already finished, should I really persist and live in the end or focus on other areas of my life other than manifesting a specific person? So I'll answer that question. Yes, you should focus on other areas of your life rather than manifesting a specific person. The order that you already put out there. Imagine we're talking Amazon. You already put the order out. You don't need to track where the package is going, who's handling the package, what city is it in, what dock is it in, what carrier is bringing it to your door. It doesn't matter. You just want to receive it. Now, just like with an Amazon package, what are you doing while the package is on its way to you? You're going to work. You are cooking food. You're eating food. You're going out to eat. You're sleeping. Hopefully you're sleeping. You are doing other things. There are other aspects of life that do not revolve around a specific person, a previous lover, or a current lover. As my wife said earlier, the more I focused on her, the more she focused on her. The more I focused on myself, she started to focus on me. So, and that's how we maintain our relationship now. We constantly are continuing to evolve our own identity, maintain that identity. And because she pours into herself, I pour into my own self, then we become magnetic to each other. You never want to be obsessed. As she already said, when I was in obsession mode, she was like, no, thank you, no mas, no mas. But when I came out of that and started to pour into myself and started to focus on other things, my money, my health, my fitness, all the other things that life is composed of, that's when it started to work. So there are other areas of your life to focus on. One more example, plants. This is why we surround our beautiful home with plants. We have to take care of these plants in different cadences. We just don't take care of one plant while the other ones die. It's the same way. You are growing a garden in your life. And when you tend to that garden, instead of just one individual plant, you have a lush garden of Eden that you can walk in at any time instead of one nice house plant and everything else is dead. All right, so that is the end of this episode. But if this episode hit home for you, type "that made sense to me" down in the comments so I know that this wisdom served you well. Tap into the links below and sign up for my newsletter to get my free ebook delivered straight to your inbox. If you want to hear even more from this conversation, the extended version of this interview is available exclusively to members inside my INNERVERSE program, alongside with my 5-phase system that goes much, much further, much more beyond everything that I offer on this channel. It all designed to reprogram your subconscious mind and lock in your identity shift for good this time. The link is in the description down below and in the pinned comment. Again, thank you, each and every one of you, for watching this special episode. I am Shaun.
And I am Margarita.
And you are neither here nor there. Thank you for sharing your time and space with us.
You talk like you're talking to a stadium.
What?
You talk like you're talking to a stadium.
I'm preparing for the future. I'm preparing for the, ¿cómo se dice future?
Futuro.
Futuro.